Peace, 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 peace. Today, what I want to look at is some of the similarities and differences that I found in practice and leadership in my different uh, roles in spiritual spaces. So, a lot of the similarities that I found are similarities because I live in the United States. That's because I was born in the United States, and because my experiences are largely here. So when I think about the things that are similar in the expression or in the reception of Christianity and African traditional systems, in this particular instance, Akan, cultural expression, a lot of the similarities are based on the fact that I and the people that I'm interacting with live and exist in the United States. I remember after becoming a licensed minister, and I was in my 20s, after becoming a licensed minister, that a friend of mine who felt like she needed some spiritual help, and we were both young, differentiated between me and Reverend Blackman. And I was like, I'm the same person. I was when she said, I need to speak to Reverend Blackman. And I'm going, she ain't going nowhere. Like I don't have a phone booth that I go into and I'm Adia and then I'm Reverend Blackman. It's all coming from the same pot. And that same idea I have seen in spaces when people will use my title or station to try and check me or pull me back in line. So to whatever they think is in line. So I've been called, okay, Okomfo, to to get me to behave in a certain way. Uh, it is in the teachings. Uh, there is a difference. The first trip that I took to Ghana that was specifically focused on being initiated into the Akan tradition, I would see people who were just beautiful and powerful in display and ritual, that 10 minutes earlier may have been in some jeans and flip flops and a t shirt, or in a lapa and a t shirt, and then showed up in garb and ritual specific garments that were splendid, and even the and just showed their experience and commitment to the culture that they were carrying out. Um, I have felt, and maybe it was because I was younger, because I realized there is a very big issue with sexuality in Christianity, um, sexuality in other religions too, but this is where I stand. I know that when I was a young minister, the idea that, and I've mentioned this before, the idea that I was a young minister with any sort of shape or nubility or hints at sexuality or fertility were scary for a lot of people, particularly men who felt like they needed to take advantage of me. And I've mentioned before that it was not that I was cautioned by one of my jegnas or my elders, that there were men who would want to conquer us as female ministers because it was like a badge. I did was in the teaching of it. I have not received that same feeling in being in a compo, largely because so much of your body is used in your work. Um, there's a lot of connection of my body to earth and to movement. So it is not me sitting in a particular place trying to make sure that I'm dressed in a way that is masking my femininity. Um, the power is in the connection between my spirit and my body, and of course, the spirit and body of the world around me. The being separated, being separated from my office or being referred to by my title or whatever it um, is such a, here come all the big words, it's such a European bifurcation, like a separation of high and low, of light and dark, of male and female, of sinner versus saint, of um, what is it, of sacred versus profane. It's such a big thing. And I remember in seminary um, there were other ministers, men and women, who felt like they they would leave town to go drink if they wanted to have a mixed drink because it was so frowned upon by maybe some of their parishioners or whatever it was, that they did not want to be seen in a local restaurant with a daiquiri. And I can appreciate the consideration of the parishioners, but I do look a lot at that separation. And I remember during this time when I learned of that there were people who would travel 50 minutes just to be able to sit down in a restaurant and have a mixed drink. That at that point, the the it's all a cultural reflection. So at that point, the drinking was seen in our community in America and in our communities. The drinking was seen as more of a vice than smoking. So some of these same people who would drive 50 minutes to go have a drink didn't have a problem stepping outside to smoke. But it was interesting to me to find out that around this same time in English, various English um, communities or practices, that it was considered more negative to be seen smoking than to be seen drinking. So it was interesting. It was not comical, but again, interesting to see how cultural mores or practices, laws, morals, understood practices in a community also determine the value, the positivity or negativity of a particular behavior. So that was funny. I remember um, my daughter said to me, my daughter said, so many HBCUs are Christian by default, whether people are or not. It is something that the church has been a very big safety place of safety for African Americans. It has been a place of community for us. So many of our HBCUs, almost by default, are and they have large churches on campus, and they invite people to come and speak at the churches and all those things. And it was interesting because my daughter was talking to me about how, and on the one hand, she'd be in class and someone would be talking about all this proactive, protect yourself, pay attention, all these things when it comes to sexuality, and then be in another space on campus where sex is bad, sex is bad, sex is bad. And I remember when I became a minister thinking, well, we teach that sex is bad, or it becomes the understood notion that sex is bad. But then we're also teaching that it's a wonder and you should save it for marriage for someone you truly treasure. And it's like static, like it doesn't they don't quite speak to each other, and it's such an abrupt shift. It's such an abrupt shift, that this thing that you've been taught against your entire life is now magical and okay, as opposed to teaching that it has been magical your whole life and to be careful with it your whole life, and that the expression of it can be even more beautiful in your marriage, as opposed to that, as opposed to going bad, 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 bloop, good. So that has always been interesting. So there are some things that I know are similarities and differences, and some of them, again, are in practice, and some of them are in thought. So I remember being in seminary, and one of the brothers, one of a brother minister would say to me that when he went up in the pulpit, he felt like a rock star. People are looking up at him, and he's speaking out to everybody. And it's an easy drug to get hooked on. I do not feel, not for lack of trying, because again, I still live in the United States, but I do not feel that same rock star tendency in traditional practice. Now, there are people who are traditional priests who want to be high and lifted up. And there is respect given to expertise. That's on both sides, in any leadership, actually, given to expertise and sincere, genuine, and good character commitment to the people that you are serving. But because we live here in this lovely this lovely society where someone is where it's hierarchical and someone is placed above someone else, that rock star thing is easily run into. Um, so I've seen it very heavily in church, whether the minister wanted to be a rock star or not, or just that maybe the parishioners that are lifting minister up that way, almost like children do with their teacher. That's my teacher. My teacher can't say anything wrong, to a certain point when children are a certain age. That I've seen some of those same behaviors in church. I don't see the same kind of teaching when it comes to being a traditional priest. Not that those behaviors don't exist, because again, um, where you live affects how you live. The other thing is that I appreciated, although this happens in the Black church and in traditional systems, I appreciate that in my initiation as a practitioner and a priest, the acknowledgement that every human being that comes to this planet is connected to the source. Every human being. That same proverb, no one teaches a child God. Every person that comes connected to the Creator, to the ancestors, is open in a particular way to spiritual gifts and abilities. Are they nurtured? Is a question. Are they given the space to work them? Is another question. Um, but that we all come here that way. And I didn't always feel like in church that was taught. Now, in Black community, that's certainly taught. There have been Black women left and right in the church who are giving readings, who are telling you what God told them, who are warning you away from things, left and right, and often with very good intentions, pure of heart, and good character, with messages that have been quite applicable in traditional practice, the acknowledgement that everyone is connected, and that those of us who have committed ourselves to service in this way are here in service to the shrines, in service to the ancestors, in service to our fellow man and woman, seemed far more emphasized. Um, the ability to know, there have been times where I've been called to uh, cast out bad energy, evil energy from someone's home as a minister, from someone's space as a minister, and almost to the point that other people did not have the same capability. Not even almost, to the point that other people would not have the same capability. And I don't shirk the responsibility or the responsibility of the commitment that I've undertaken, the time that I have given to it. I appreciate that in traditional systems there are tools that are available to everyone, because the earth is available to everyone, because the shrines are available to everyone. And again, there are things that, because I have assumed responsibility as a servant in this way, as a traditional priest, there are things that I'm committing myself to learning about, that maybe everyone else may not have the same time, attention, or commitment to learn about. And that there are things that are available to everyone. There are tools that are available to everyone. So I may be called in to assist. Um, and there is the recognition that each person on the planet is imbued or empowered with a connection to spirit and a connection to their ancestors. And re- that there's no competition between what I've committed myself to and your bloodline and the connection from ancestors to their descendants. That is a very, very powerful connection. In the church, there was a lot of good versus good versus evil, good versus evil. So there was a lot of rebuking things in the name of Jesus. Um, and I can remember almost like chanting it in my 20s. And I believe that the things we are very powerful beings, and what we give power to has power. So I'm not saying that it wasn't necessary or that it was fruitless. I am very appreciative, though, that my children in their learning, in their being raised in African tradition, evil is not what they think about. They're in Christianity, it was very clearly marked that this is good versus evil. But over here in African tradition, it is just that this is life, and light and dark make up life, day and night make up life. Um, that the choices that I make, and it's not like poof, it's magic. I made great choices, nothing will ever happen. But that I am responsible for making good choices and having good character, and that even when things come that are unpleasant, there's a lesson, there is a way that I can receive it that will allow me to grow, and that it's all part of the whole. There are not, when I first began initiation, I remember one of my friends being concerned that there were evil spirits or demons or something, that she was concerned with. I was going to have more access to me than it would have before. And trying to break down to her that that was not where my thinking was. My thinking was on being connected to the shrines, to my ancestors. That there's there's power in all spiritual expression, and fear was not my motivator. And that is something else that I noticed that was a difference. And again, where we live determines how we live. So in the church, there was a lot of fear and punishment that were used as motivators um, for a long time. It's been there for a long time. And again, a lot of it is culture that is expressed in spiritual tradition. I do not receive the same feeling or understanding in African traditional systems. I don't the knowledge that my life and my choices are working between me and my shrines, between me and my ancestors, between me and others around me and their shrines and ancestors, and that we want the greatest good is a far better motivator than fear and punishment. The motivator of connection and reception is so big, the desire to uh, know that I can be in communication with my ancestors, in communication with the shrines, and to hear them clearly, and to be a clean vessel, as clean as I possibly can, without, not in the way of like dirty or clean, but as uninterrupted and distracted, as focused as I can be, to receive connection, reception is a much larger motivator. I felt like when I was in church, I was praying to be considered worthy of being blessed, to praying to be considered worthy of receiving grace, praying to be considered worthy of whatever it is I was asking for. And um, as I got older, I don't know that I felt that the same way in the church, but it was always an underlying theme that it was, I'm asking and asking and asking, praying that I have behaved well, that I have proven myself. Um, Even with knowing that God loves me, that was often a feeling. And I don't, it's not the way I feel in African traditional expression. What I feel is that I want to have good character because I want to affect the world and the people around me with good character. I want to be, if I'm a prism, I want the light to come through as uninhibited as it can be, and to shine this light through this prism, to disperse this color among the people around me, into the world around me. So more than being considered worthy so that I may receive or be in a place protected from punishment, my desire is to be clear so that I can hear, so that I can share. So it is still that same motivator of um, connection, and displaying good character and doing the work. So I talked about how in seminary there are many different ways that Christianity can be expressed, and that oftentimes the way that we are receiving it is is very evangelical, white evangelical, and then we're Black folks carrying it out. So there's still parts of us that are included, and um, there was a being able to articulate, being a process theologian, and trusting that I am responsible for doing whatever work I've been called to do, to work alongside um, my creator and my ancestors, to contribute my good energy, my intuition, my calling to the world was significant, is significant to me. And so in traditional practice, my motivator is, again, with the connection and reception, is to do the work, which is largely having good character and being connected both, in all ways around me, and being a part of the whole, and carrying out my responsibility as a part of the whole, as a part of the whole of divinity, being the earth and people and um, the great mystery I cannot see. So I wanted to share some of those similarities and differences. They're overall, and I've said it before, the sharing of this is largely because each person is very, very powerful. We are all very powerful. And it's important that we choose spaces where we can move in that power and that peace and that joy, and that our connection with everything around us, with the all, is rooted in that. And that when things occur that may not feel peaceful or powerful or joyful, that underneath that is still the current, and that we can connect to that. And we want our spiritual practices and rituals to allow us to consistently return to that as our baseline: peaceful, powerful, and joyful. So you may share it with each other. So, okay. But I will see you again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Peace.